I want to ask you a question. What is the very first image that pops into your head when you hear the words nirvana or, like, Buddhist emptiness? Just, picture it for a second.
I mean, for the vast majority of people, it evokes a very specific, almost cinematic aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. You probably picture a monk sitting cross-legged in a void of total silence. Maybe they're in a perfectly white, featureless room.
Right. Or meditating on top of a freezing, misty mountain somewhere.
Yes. Completely detached from everything the rest of us experience. Like, no thoughts, no feelings, no cravings.
Yeah.
Just a completely blank slate.
It's the ultimate shutting down of the human experience. It's often viewed as a kind of voluntary sensory withdrawal in order to escape the pain of existence and finally find peace.
But today, we're going to completely dismantle that stereotype of the silent void.
Oh, we really are.
In this deep dive, we're looking at a deeply fascinating essay from August 2023 by an author named Shifeng, titled Emptiness is Ultimate Nirvana. And our mission today is to explore how this source argues that true emptiness is not some blank, lifeless, boring room.
Far from it.
Right. It is actually the ultimate state of joy, absolute freedom, and, like, boundless universal energy. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand what emptiness actually is, we first have to understand how we've been getting the core instruction manual entirely wrong.
Yeah, we really have been looking at the blueprint upside down. And just to be clear right up front for anyone listening, our goal here isn't to take a stance on any specific religious belief.
Yeah, definitely not.
Or to endorse one theology over another. We were simply mapping out the rather radical philosophical argument this author is making.
Right.
And the author's very first claim goes right for the jugular of traditional Buddhist texts. They argue that the famous Heart Sutra, which, if you know anything about Mahayana Buddhism, is arguably its most well-known foundational text.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, they argue it's fundamentally misinterpreted and mistranslated.
Wait, you can't just drop that casually.
I know, it's a huge claim.
The Heart Sutra is recited by millions of people every single day. It's the absolute cornerstone. What kind of evidence does the source have to claim the name itself is wrong? Like, what are we supposed to be calling it?
So the author states that it shouldn't be called the Heart Sutra at all. If understood correctly, its true name is the Nature Sutra.
Nature. Like trees and mountains.
Not nature as in the forest, but nature as in the underlying essence or fundamental characteristics of things.
Oh, okay.
The source points to a very specific famous line in the text to back this up. It says, "The past mind cannot be grasped. The present mind cannot be grasped. The future mind cannot be grasped."
Okay, so the mind is ungraspable.
Exactly. And the author draws a staggering conclusion from this single line. If the past, present, and future mind cannot be grasped, then the mind itself does not actually exist. It's an illusion. Therefore, the sutra cannot possibly be about achieving a specific state of mind. It has to be about returning to the fundamental state of nature.
So we've been staring at the wrong target this entire time.
Pretty much.
People have spent thousands of years trying to clear their minds, trying to discipline their minds, when the text is actually saying the mind is just a mirage to begin with. I mean, you can't polish a mirror that isn't there.
That's a great way to put it. It fundamentally shifts the goalposts of the entire philosophy. And the author pushes this logic to its absolute limit.
How so?
They argue that without what they call seeing the nature, actually perceiving this underlying essence, all the traditional external religious practices are completely and utterly useless for becoming a Buddha.
Useless.
Completely. The source is remarkably unsparing about this. It explicitly says that reciting sutras, keeping strict precepts, fasting, practicing charity, even releasing captive animals, none of it works if you don't see the nature.
That is so wild. It makes me think of meticulously studying a menu at a 3-star Michelin restaurant.
Oh, I like that.
Right. You spend years memorizing the exact font the restaurant uses. You learn the chemical composition of the foams they use. You know the exact geographic origin of the truffles. You wear the right clothes to the restaurant.
Yeah.
And you talk about the menu every single day with your friends. But you never actually sit down and put the food in your mouth.
Yes. You are performing all the complex rituals associated with the meal, but you are physically starving to death because you haven't digested the essence, the actual nature of the food itself.
Exactly. But wait, this brings up a massive contradiction for
Okay,
me.
let's hear it.
If the mind doesn't actually exist, like the author claims, who or what exactly is supposed to be experiencing this nature? If my mind is gone, who is sitting at the table eating the Michelin star meal?
That is the pivotal question right there. It leads us directly into how the source actually describes this natural state of emptiness. Because once you remove the mind from the equation, you're left with a description of emptiness in the sutra that, at first glance, sounds downright terrifying.
Lay it out for us, because I read this section and it sounded incredibly bleak.
It does. According to the source's reading of this Nature Sutra, emptiness has no arising or ceasing. It is neither tainted nor pure.
Okay.
In this state, there is absolutely no sensory experience, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, or mind.
None at all.
None. There are no forms, sounds, smells, or tastes. It goes on to say there is no ignorance, no aging, no death, but crucially also no wisdom and no path.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
On behalf of anyone listening to this right now.
Go for it.
That sounds like a horrific, eternal sensory deprivation tank.
It really does.
It sounds like a completely lifeless emptiness. You're just floating in a dark, silent box forever. No taste of food, no sound of music, no physical touch, not even the comfort of gaining wisdom. Why on earth would any human being strive for an eternity of absolutely nothing?
What's fascinating here is that the author explicitly anticipates this exact panic.
They do.
Yes, they literally pause the essay to address it, saying, "Doesn't this seem like a state of lifeless emptiness? Wait a moment."
So they know it sounds bad.
Oh, the author fully realizes that human beings who are so deeply attached to our physical senses to understand reality will read that description and want to run the other way.
Yeah. I mean, I would.
But they clarify that this is not a sensory deprivation tank. It is actually a state of profound, unimaginable freedom and perfection. It's a state where all friction and suffering have been eliminated, perfectly harmonizing with the Tao.
The Tao being the ancient Chinese concept of the fundamental natural flow of the universe, right?
Correct.
So it's not the absence of life, it's the absence of resistance.
Yes. And the author builds a grand, overarching logical equation to prove that this emptiness is actually the ultimate prize.
Let's hear the equation.
So they state that emptiness equals formlessness.
Oh.
Formlessness equals selflessness. Selflessness equals ultimate nirvana.
Right.
Ultimate nirvana equals the Elysium world. The Elysium world equals the Tao.
Wow. Oh,
The Tao equals Buddha. And Buddha equals a super celestial being.
that is a dense, massive equation. Let's break down the causal links there, because just listing them makes them sound like buzzwords. How does emptiness lead to being a super celestial being?
Think of it as a domino effect of shedding limitations. Emptiness means stripping away the false layers of reality.
Okay, so shedding the illusions.
Exactly. When you strip those away, you achieve formlessness, meaning you are no longer bound by rigid physical boundaries or strict definitions.
Right.
When you apply formlessness to a human, it becomes selflessness. The ego, which is just a psychological boundary, disappears.
So shedding the ego leads to ultimate nirvana, which the author equates with the Elysium world.
Yes.
And in traditional Buddhist cosmology, the Elysium world is often thought of as a pure land, a kind of paradise. And achieving that paradise aligns you with the Tao, the universal flow.
You're tracking perfectly.
That makes you an awakened one, a Buddha, which the author describes as a super celestial being, a state of existence entirely transcending normal human limits.
The core takeaway from this long equation is that these aren't different destinations or like separate religious concepts.
They're all the same thing.
Exactly. They are all different angles of looking at the exact same state of being. Achieving any single one of them means you have achieved all of them. If you manage true selflessness, you don't have to travel to find the Elysium world. You automatically enter it.
But wait, this brings up another brilliant paradox in the text.
Let's hear it.
If emptiness means everything is completely absent, no eyes, no ears, no form, no taste, then what is the point of calling it the Elysium world? Usually when we think of Elysium or paradise, we think of a breathtakingly beautiful destination.
Right, like lush gardens and golden light.
Exactly. But if the destination is literally a void, then paradise is just, well, empty dark space.
And that paradox is exactly what the author sets out to solve next. The solution is that we, as readers, are confusing the map for the territory.
Oh, okay.
The author explains that the Nature Sutra does not actually describe the true scenery of the Elysium world.
So all that stuff about no eyes, no ears isn't what the paradise actually looks like.
No, not at all. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it only describes the path and the method required to get there.
I see.
The description of no form, no sound isn't a literal photograph of your final destination. It is essentially a set of cognitive directions. The author says this text is urgently whispering to us, go, 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 towards the other shore.
Okay, I'm trying to visualize this. It's almost like looking at the Matrix. No, that's not quite right. It's more like looking at the raw computer code of a massive AAA open-world video game.
Oh, I like where you're going with this. Walk us through it.
So if you open up the back end of a video game and just look at the code on a monitor, it looks like a bunch of dry, lifeless, empty ones and zeros.
Right, just text on a screen.
Yeah. There's no color, there's no swelling soundtrack, there's no landscape, it's just raw data. That code is the path. It's the emptiness the sutra is talking about. It looks like a void. But when you actually boot up the system and run that code, it generates a vibrant, gorgeous, endless open world. That beautiful world is the Elysium world. You absolutely need the empty ones and zeros to build the paradise. But the ones and zeros are not the paradise itself.
That bridges the concepts beautifully. The sutra is the raw code. It gives you a cognitive framework to detach from the physical world.
Right.
It tells you to let go of your reliance on your physical eyes and ears so you can travel the path. It looks dry and formless to the untrained eye, but it is not saying the destination itself is blind and deaf.
So if the sutra is just the dry code, how do we actually boot up the game? Like, how do we know what the vibrant world actually looks like when it's running?
For that, the author introduces what they call the universal key to unlock all the mysteries of the universe.
A universal key.
Yes, and this key consists of three very distinct elements operating together: structure, consciousness, and energy.
Structure, consciousness, and energy. How do those three things interact to create a paradise out of emptiness?
The author posits that as long as a non-material structure exists, consciousness can step in and mobilize all the energy of the universe.
Okay, so consciousness is the activator.
Exactly. When consciousness acts within that structure, it allows emptiness to be formed, filling the entire universe with vitality and vigor.
We need a real-world example to ground this.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm thinking about, say, a symphony orchestra, the structure would be the musical notation, the sheet music.
Right, the framework.
It's non-material. It's just a set of rules and mathematical relationships about pitch and timing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the energy would be the raw physics of sound, the vibrations in the air, the physical exertion of the musicians holding the instruments.
Yes. It's raw power, but without direction, it's just noise.
Exactly. And that leaves consciousness. The consciousness is the conductor, or the mind of the musician interpreting the sheet music. The consciousness takes the raw energy, applies it to the non-material structure of the composition, and suddenly, empty silence is transformed into a breathtaking symphony. The consciousness is the spark that turns emptiness into something vibrant and alive.
That captures the mechanics perfectly. It is consciousness that takes the lifeless void and transforms it into the true scenery of the Elysium world.
Wow.
But here's the most fascinating turn in the entire essay. The author spends all this time laying out this incredibly complex metaphysical framework equations, bridging nirvana and supercelestial beings, structures, universal energy, and then they completely undercut all of their own philosophy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. After pages of deep theory, the author basically says, by the way, theory is totally useless.
They really do. They drag all this high-minded philosophy right back down to earth with a piece of fruit.
Ah, yes.
The author calls upon the famous pineapple analogy.
The pineapple test.
Yeah.
The author points out that without firsthand experience, all this knowledge we just spent time talking about is pale and inconclusive. It's like looking at a reflection of a fire in a mirror, or trying to scoop the moon out of a puddle of water. You can read 1,000 books about what a pineapple tastes like.
You really can.
I could sit here and describe the specific acidity, the tropical sweetness, the fibrous texture, the way the juice feels. But until you actually bite into a piece of pineapple yourself, you do not truly understand its flavor.
And this is the crux of the author's message. You can read the Nature Sutra until your eyes bleed. You can memorize the grand equation of emptiness and nirvana.
Yeah.
You can understand the interplay of structure, consciousness, and energy, but that is all just staring at the menu. It's staring at the raw code. At some point, you have to take a bite of the pineapple.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. How do you actually take that first bite? Like, how do you move from understanding this high-level theory to actually practicing it?
The author gives a very clear, ultimate, practical goal for taking that bite. Total self-forgetting.
Forgetting oneself.
Yes. By completely forgetting yourself, shedding the ego we talked about earlier, you enter that state of emptiness.
Okay, so losing the ego is the key.
Exactly. Now, the author does mention that there are 8 methods of entry-level practice detailed in a specific text called the Free Holy Land, the Extinction and Emptiness of Form of Dharma.
Right, they reference that text.
But the author makes it clear that regardless of the specific meditative techniques those 8 methods employ, the core, inescapable mechanic behind all of them is letting go of the self.
And what happens when you do?
When you enter that state of self-forgetting, it doesn't bring sensory deprivation. It brings complete relaxation and profound joy. The author states unequivocally that this joy is the true scenery of the Elysium world.
So the scenery isn't a place with golden clouds and harps. The scenery is the actual visceral feeling of joy that floods in when you stop obsessing over your own ego. So what does this all mean for daily life? Let's bring this down to reality for you, the listener. Let's say you are stuck in brutal bumper-to-bumper traffic right now. Or you're sitting at your desk stressing over a passive-aggressive email from your boss.
A very relatable scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
How does this abstract concept of self-forgetting actually help you find that complete relaxation? Because honestly, when I'm stressed, my ego is usually screaming. I'll catch myself in the shower just rehearsing an argument I might have later that day. It's exhausting.
Well, let's apply the author's universal key to your traffic jam.
Okay, let's do it.
The traffic itself, the cars, the road, the rules of the highway is the structure. The frustration and anxiety you feel is the energy.
Right.
And right now, your consciousness is directing that energy through the lens of your ego.
Oh, I see. The voice in my head is saying, why is this traffic happening to me? I am going to be late. This inconvenience is an attack on my schedule.
Precisely.
The suffering requires a self to actually experience it. It's the friction of my ego rubbing up against the reality of the road.
So what happens if you practice self-forgetting? What happens if you remove the me from the equation? Even just for a minute.
If the self is gone, then the consciousness shifts. The cars are just metal boxes moving slowly. The email from the boss is just pixels on a screen. There is no actual threat because the self that feels threatened isn't holding the steering wheel anymore.
And without the friction of the ego blocking the way, what rushes in to fill that space?
Complete relaxation.
Exactly, that joy the author talks about. You get a tiny, genuine glimpse of the Elysium world right there in your car in rush hour traffic, simply because you dropped the incredibly heavy burden of being you for a few seconds.
That's amazing.
You aligned your consciousness with the structure, and the energy turned from stress into peace.
That makes it an incredibly practical tool, not just ancient philosophy. But, as we start to wrap up this deep dive, I want to bring up the author's final, seemingly contradictory hint at the end of the essay.
Oh, the riddle.
Yeah, the riddle. The author says, and I quote, "Emptiness is the Elysium world," but then almost immediately follows it by saying, "Emptiness does not describe the true scenery of the Elysium world."
It sounds like a deliberate contradiction, but the author provides a beautifully simple analogy to resolve it. They say, an apple is a fruit, but a fruit is not necessarily an apple.
Okay, I think I see where this is going, but break that down for us in the context of the sutra.
Emptiness belongs to the Elysium world. It is a fundamental characteristic of it, just like an apple is fundamentally a fruit. You cannot have the Elysium world without emptiness.
Right.
But emptiness does not encompass the entire vibrant picture of the Elysium world, just as the word apple doesn't encompass oranges, bananas, and all the other amazing fruits out there.
That makes perfect sense.
Emptiness is the gateway, the underlying code, the prerequisite, but the actual experience of the destination, the joy, the relaxation, the universal energy, is far richer and more alive than the single word empty implies.
That completely flips the paradigm of the silent, lifeless void. Which leaves me wondering about those moments of self-forgetting we experience in everyday life. We talked about how consciousness mobilizes energy within a structure to create the Elysium world.
We did. And if we take the author's logic seriously, it leaves us with a pretty staggering implication about how we experience the world right now.
How so?
Think about the last time you were deeply engrossed in something. Maybe playing an intense sport, painting, or just laughing so hard with your friends that you completely forgot where you were and who you were.
Oh yeah, those are the best moments.
Psychologists refer to that as a flow state, a moment of pure selfless joy where the ego entirely vanishes and you are just pure action and awareness.
Right.
If consciousness mobilizes energy to create the Elysium world, is it possible that every time you enter a state of deep flow, you aren't just having a good time?
Wait, what do you mean?
What if, in those brief moments of pure selflessness, you are literally temporarily downloading the exact same operating system as a super celestial being? What if paradise isn't a place you go after you die, but a frequency you can tune into right now, simply by forgetting yourself?
That really changes how you look at getting lost in a good laugh, doesn't it? Thank you so much for exploring these sources with us today. The next time you picture that monk sitting in the silent void, just remember, they might not be sitting in nothingness at all.
Not all.
They might just be playing the most vibrant, joyful video game in the universe. Keep diving deep, and we'll catch you next time.